Call to order the City Commission meeting of Monday, October 2nd, 2017. Let the record show that all commissioners are present. First things, the order of business, Mr. Kessel.
Thank you, President Decker. I do have a couple of recommended changes tonight. The first would be, we've had Mr. Gaddy and Mr. Simon can't be here tonight, and they were on the agenda for a 5 o'clock timetable. We can certainly move that item, the Western Dakota Energy presentation, down to a report, and I'd be happy to kind of go over that document. Unfortunately, they're not able to be here this evening. We can, the timeliness will allow us to put it on the next City Commission, so we can still vote on the meeting or vote on the item at the next meeting, and I'll just give a slight report tonight. I'd also like to add the proclamation. It was in your packets, but it wasn't on the agenda itself, so if we could add that to administration, column or number 4 on the non-timetable agenda. Appreciate that. I also have a couple of reports that I'd like to give, so they would add to 4 under the report section, and that would be under the North Dakota League of Cities annual meeting. I'd like to give a report on that, and then also an update on activities with Dickinson, Texas, and Hurricane Harvey. If you don't mind, I'd like to add an item onto that. And then under engineering reports, so 6C, if we could add an urban grant program report. You did receive an updated or an email update from Engineer Kubis, but we'd like to have a brief discussion about that item as well. They extended the comment period, so we can have a discussion tonight if you would like to. That would be the changes that I'd like to recommend for tonight's meeting.
Okay. Any discussion or questions on the changes?
Make a motion to accept the changes.
We have a motion to accept and a second. Any further discussion or questions? If not, all in favor of the changes to the order of business?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Order of business is changed and approved. Consent agenda. Anything on the consent agenda that commissioners would like to discuss? If there's nothing on the consent agenda you wish to discuss, I'd look for a motion to approve the consent agenda or make. Okay. We have a motion to approve and a second. Any further discussion on consent agenda? Hearing none, we'll vote. Mrs. Trustum?
Aye.
Mr. Altman?
Aye.
Mr. Steiner?
Aye.
Mr. Friedrich?
Aye.
Chair votes aye. Consent agenda is approved. We have 3 timetable items. Now they'll only start at 5:15 instead of 5. So we'll move on to the non-timetable agenda. And the first thing up is the 2018 budget ordinance. Deputy City Administrator Carlson.
Thank you, President. I'd like to bring this up that the ordinance number 1640 is now up for the second and final reading, and nothing has been changed from the first reading or the public hearing. The only thing, just to go over some of the changes again, were that there was a 3% salary matrix increase for full-time and part-time benefit starting as of January 1st of 2018, so that's an addition. There is no increase in city property taxes for 2018. Administrative fee from enterprise funds increased by 2%. On that, 4 new full-time positions and 3 part-time seasonal positions have been requested for 2018. Our request for personnel promotions within the department amounts to about $55,000, which was part of the budget that was recommended. So with that, staff recommends the approval of the 2018 annual appropriation and tax levy ordinance 1640.
Okay, thank you, Mrs. Carlson. Any questions for Mrs. Carlson or observations on ordinance 1640? Hearing no questions or observations on 1640, I would look for the approval or denial of the second reading of the final passage of ordinance number 16.
Move to approve, Mr. President.
We have an ordinance,
Second.
a motion to approve 1640 with a second. Any further discussion or questions? Hearing none, we'll vote. Mr. Steiner?
Aye.
Mr. Friedrich?
Aye.
Mr. Altman?
Aye.
Mrs. Trustum?
Aye.
Chair votes aye. Ordinance 1640 is passed.
Thank you.
Now, this will be forwarded to the county. Correct?
Yep.
Now, I have one other question on this. Have we met, next year the deadline is moved up?
Correct. That is right. With legislative, it's
Right,
moved
so
up a whole month.
Do we meet it this year, or no?
President Decker, no, we had the intentions of doing it. I'm very glad we went through the process and tried to do it because we realized that we have to start even earlier
Okay.
than we anticipated. We have to meet on August 10th. It's not a final budget, but we have to have the preliminary budget done by that time.
Yeah, I was hoping too, that us meeting early would, and I think we're gonna add some things too next year when the departments come in, right? Commissioners are gonna be involved,
Correct.
so,
Yes.
okay. All right, thank you. Next up is the amendment to the liquor license ordinance. Attorney Kripe?
Mr. Chair, members of the commission, this would be ordinance number 1642, and it's up for its first reading. Following the request of the public last week, or excuse me, at the last meeting, to change our ordinance from 19 to 18 for the age that is allowed for someone to work in a restaurant and deliver an alcoholic beverage. We did amend that ordinance, and that's what is changed here. And you'll see that under item B on the ordinance that that's the language that had to change. So it does make sure that someone is at least 18 years of age and is under the direct supervision of someone who is at least 21 years of age can deliver alcohol. The state law is 18, and so we're coming into compliance with what they do. And then there is a caveat in the state law that they can't pour or dispense it on their own. They can only deliver. So even to deliver a bottle of wine, they can't pour the wine at the table. They can only deliver a glass of wine that the bartender has poured. And so that's at state level. So we don't go into too much detail here, but understand that is otherwise provided for.
Okay.
Thank you. Any questions for Ms. Kripe? Not, I would look for a motion on ordinance 1642.
Make a motion to approve.
We have a motion to approve 1642
Second.
with a second. Any further discussion or questions? Hearing none, we'll vote. Mr. Altman?
Aye.
Mrs. Trustum?
Aye.
Mr. Steiner?
Aye.
Mr. Friedrich?
Aye.
Chair votes aye. Ordinance 1642 is passed. Next up, we have the Dickinson Downtown Association introduction.
Good evening, President Decker and Commissioners. My name is Christy Schwartz. I'm the president of the Downtown Dickinson Association, and I wanted to give you an update. A few months ago, you voted to have some funds come our way for a couple of different purposes, so I'm going to just update you on that tonight. The first thing I'd like to do is to introduce our new executive director, and this is Lindsay Schaefer. I'll let her tell you a little bit about herself so that you have a background.
Wasn't quite prepared for that. I am born and raised in Dickinson, have lived here most of my life, besides to go to school. So I've been back here for about 9 years, have worked in Dickinson, running some other businesses. So I look forward to the opportunity to work with the Downtown Dickinson Association, its board members, and the city of Dickinson to revitalize the downtown area, to bring more businesses and people to the area.
Welcome aboard.
Thank you.
So as you all know, that was part of our funds that you gave us, is for us to be able to get staff for our association. And the other part of it was for the process of continuing on with our town square plan, and specifically to create an RFP to have an architect firm put in bids for getting the plan to a point of a marketable town square. And so as part of that, the RFP language, we've been having a firm help us start creating that language. The city will have the final word. It's about ready. It should probably in the next week, if not 2 weeks, it should be over to the city for Attorney Kripe to take a look at and put the city's language into that. The RFP, as I mentioned, is so that we can, you as a city can get a firm to bid on. What they'll do is take the current existing downtown plan, which you've paid for previously, that has beautiful concept drawings. They will have a minimum of 2 public input meetings to get input from our community about what they want to see on or within the town square. And then the firm will create plans and drawings with those changes and that input from the community. And that way then we have a marketable item that we can start fundraising so that we can raise the funds that we have committed to raise, so then the city can eventually build the town square. So that's the second piece to that.
Sounds good.
Okay?
Any questions for Mrs. Schwartz?
Mrs. Schwartz, just real quick, how many members do you have in the Downtown Association at this time?
We have 35 members. 35
35?
members.
Thank you.
You bet. I understand that you might be looking for just some input from our association regarding the sale of the parking lot. And we did do a vote of our board members, and it has passed to be in favor of the sale of that parking lot.
What's the, what do you think the total amount of qualified businesses are for the downtown?
What do you mean by qualified?
You got 35 members out of how many that you think would
Hundreds.
qualify?
Hundreds.
100?
No. As far as downtown, I would consider that the whole entire community can be members of the Downtown Association. If you were talking about just business owners and property owners in downtown Dickinson, I don't know what that number is, Mr. Steiner, but I believe it to be probably maybe 300 approximately, just my guesstimate.
So Ms. Schaefer will go out and see businesses outside of the downtown
She will.
district?
Yes.
So on also.
Already has started doing that process.
Super.
She's been with us for 1
All right,
week.
thank you.
So, you bet.
Any other questions?
I have a
Comments?
question. So when you had the discussion about the sale of the downtown lot and you came to a consensus, why did you come to a consensus? What was the underlying current of that?
Good question. Thank you for asking. So in my experience and the experience of the board members in going to downtown conferences, listening to webinars from experts of downtowns and revitalization of downtowns, every time that we listen to those things and through our own reading and our own research and that kind of thing, every piece of information that we get is always infill versus parking. And every single time it's infill if you want to revitalize your downtown. The number one thing that downtowns have to do to make them successful is to get people into the downtown. Businesses will not come to downtowns if there are not people coming into downtowns. So any opportunity that you can do to get people into your downtown areas is what you have to do to be able to make it successful. You can't get retailers and restaurants to open unless the people are coming downtown. So we see this as an opportunity. If it comes to fruition, the proposed building that's going to be on that parking lot, we see it as an opportunity to bring more people to downtown Dickinson. Parking has always been an issue in every downtown that we ever listened to. Some of it's perceived, some of it's actual. According to our downtown, the downtown study that was done by the city, it currently is not an issue. In the future, it will be. And that's something that we'll have to address together as we come against those problems with parking. But it's, all the research shows that it's always, you gotta infill the buildings, you have to have events, and you have to have businesses move downtown to get all the people downtown.
Thank you.
Okay?
Any other questions, comments? Mrs. Schwartz? Thank you.
Thank you.
Well, moving right along, that'll take us into the parking lot sale. Mr. Kessel.
Thank you, President Decker. Before I start my formal presentation, I'd like to call upon Building Official Schwent to give you an update on the parking lot north of City Hall. You authorized the use of funds to create that parking lot. That's construction began today, and Mr. Schwent is the project manager for that. And if you wouldn't mind, I'd like to give him a couple minutes to just give you an update on where that project is and what the plan is for its conclusion.
President Decker, Commissioners, like Mr. Kessel stated, we started this morning working with Aaron Prowse, Dee Nelson, get it all set up for today. It's been working smoothly. If you did drive by, you notice all 3 structures are down. Part of the process moving to this, we did have the homes inspected for asbestos. There was some in there, not a whole lot. Total Control did remove it. Their bill came in around $9,100. That was in inspections and the removal of it. Okay. We sent the intent to the state for our demo and the notification of asbestos to the state also. And we followed our protocol for a demo permit. Bronco Brothers are doing the demo. Their cost comes in at taking down the structures just under $12,000. Like I stated, it's been running really smooth. If you go over there, you'll be shocked. Thank you.
Thank you. Any comments or questions for Mr. Schwint?
Thank you, Building Official Schwint. I'd just like to add that project is being augmented by our own staff. We are providing the roll-off dumpsters and delivering them to the landfill ourselves. So that was a way to lower the costs of that project itself. And then we are using dirt to fill in the basements from the water project that's going on, the water treatment facility. So our transfer of dirt is not that far either. And they are going to load the dirt for us, but we'll be transferring it to the site. So we've tried to use our staff to cut those costs down as much as possible. So
I have one other note. We did put an advertisement in the press for the 2 small garages that were on site. We did get 2 bids. We awarded the bid, and we brought in $1,300, and they were removed. Last one was removed, I believe, yesterday.
Thank you.
okay.
Mr. Kessel, I have one more comment. And
Certainly.
the parking lot behind City Hall had always been a project that was on our to-do list anyways. This isn't necessarily in conjunction with a land sale. This was always going to be at some point.
Commissioner Oltmans, that's exactly correct. When we acquired those buildings, we weren't sure if we were going to have to build an addition to accommodate city staff for City Hall. We were able to renovate the lower level and utilize one of those buildings as an interim measure. As things have changed, we no longer needed that land to construct additional offices for City Hall staff. But the plan was to always include a first level or ground level parking and then maybe a second story office structure for City Hall or City Hall related business. So that's your statement is very accurate. So moving into the presentation itself, the land sale that we're talking about includes this dark shaded area here. These remaining spots would still contain parking as has been the plan from the beginning. So we will lose approximately 72 parking places. You guys have seen a similar slide to this at the last presentation. There are currently a reservation of 15 parking places that have been leased to a business owner in town. So those 15 places have not been accessible to the general public. So those, of the 105 or so total parking lot or parking places, those 15 haven't been available to the public since about 2001, if I'm not mistaken. So we'll gain around 35 places on the north lot that we just provided you with an update. And so the net loss of spaces is around 22, depending upon the actual numbers that we will gain and lose. But it should be similar to that. Just a quick update, we did pave the lot south of Villard. We still have to stripe that lot, but that lot is now paved, so it is more easily accessible to the public year-round. We did have concerns expressed about either rain events or snow events that impaired people's ability to park in those spots. And then our intention is to pave the, what I'll call Old City Hall lot. This would be just north of Mr. Otto's building in downtown, or just to the west of the lot that we paved, north of the old Elks building, or west of American Bank Center. So those spots are available for parking, but again, in inclement weather, they tend to be less utilized, and by providing a hard surface, we think they'll be more utilized.
Brings up another question for me.
Certainly.
As you and the developer were looking at available spots in downtown to build their location, why was the spot between the Elks and where Old City Hall, why was that not an option?
Commissioner Oltmans, that was our first spot. That is the place that we originally started to negotiate with to locate this facility. The reason that it can't go there, and it'll actually be difficult for almost all developments of size to go there, is there's a high-pressure gas line located in the alleyway there. And MDU policy prevents the construction of the structure on top of that high-capacity gas line. So it would have to be moved, and it's quite expensive. And by the way, there is also overhead electrical lines in that same location. All of that would have to be moved in order for a structure to be constructed across that alleyway. And because of the size of this facility, that would no longer became an option. And the cost to move it were just precluded its construction as well.
Okay.
Now, having said that, I should mention that there is a gas line and electrical also in this alleyway, but the difference is this gas line is a low-pressure line, and the cost to move that line is much less expensive. And I have talked with MDU about moving it. They've provided a cost, a potential cost, but that would be borne by the buyer, not by the city, to move those utilities.
Did they give you an estimate on what the difference, moving the two? I mean, the old City Hall lot, what that would cost?
They provided me a verbal of the old City Hall lot. I'm not remembering off the top of my head what that was, but it was significantly higher than this one. But that's information I can get for you, Commissioner Friedrich. I just don't have it off the top of my head. This provides you with kind of a map of what we anticipate the routing will be for the north lot. So you can see we'll utilize the alleyway here. This house will remain, and then so the traffic pattern will be in the alleyway and then out either of these two directions. Like I said, we're anticipating about 30 to 35 parking spots gained when this lot is complete. We no longer can use asphalt to construct this lot. That capability is now gone. The asphalt is been closed and moved. So if we want to construct this parking lot, it'll be with concrete, so it'll match actually what the county has done in the adjacent lot to the north. And we have been in contact with some of our contract providers, and we believe that we can still get that done this year. This is just an overview of all of the parking that's available in the downtown. Any of the lots that are in this kind of pinkish color are lots that are owned by the city and publicly available. All of the lots that are in more of this kind of yellowish color are private lots. You know, this happens to be the county courthouse parking lot. You notice we did get their extension in. We counted that as private because you know, they do utilize that for a majority of their staff and their operations. But all these other lots that are in that yellowish color are private lots, and then the pinkish ones are the ones that are in the city owns and operates. This is the lot we were just talking about that will probably hard surface next year, the old City Hall lot we refer that to. And then this is the one that was just hard surfaced here recently. I think Friday it was actually hard surfaced according to Engineer Kubis. So that'll still be striped. So this is the lots that we're talking about right now, a portion of that lot, and then the creation of this lot up here. And then I didn't count in this the on-street parking that's available too. You have a copy of the parking document that was done, that was referenced by Mrs. Schwartz, and these are the lots that they considered. So this is a rendering of the proposal that we received from the bidder, the high bidder, highest qualified bidder. This is a 7 or 8 screen movie theater. You can see that it would be operated, assuming the sale goes through, by Odyssey. That is their sign. When this rendering was complete, the corner, the building was going to be located on the corner just west of City Hall. It has now been pushed to the east, and this corner will now be approximately mid-block. It will be right here is where that corner will be. So that's where the entrance to the theater would be. But that gives you an idea of what the construction would look like upon completion. I did provide this rendering to Planner Hadley, and so it may not be a final construction view, but it'll be somewhat similar to this in nature. And these are just some little additional data points that I thought would be important for you tonight. We did run the approximate building permit cost for the structure, and based on the construction estimate that was provided to me by the potential buyers, that is the building permit would be about just over $27,000. That's of course a one-time expense, and that does include things like our sewer and water access fees, a plan review fee, and then the actual building permit cost itself. The property taxes, of course, there are none being generated right now since it's a publicly owned parking lot. But again, based on the construction cost that they anticipate, it should generate about $40,000 annually in property taxes. Now, some of the caveats with that are they may pay early. If they do, 5% would be reduced from that number. But that gives you at least an approximate of the amount of property taxes that would be generated from this construction. And then in terms of jobs, this is a much larger facility than they currently operate, so they're expecting about 10 new jobs to be created, and they'll continue to employ between 10 and 15 people that are currently employed by this business in town. And then we also checked to make sure that there was no infrastructure requirements that would be from a water and sewer perspective, and we believe that there will be no additional cost to add, upgrade our sewer line or our water line to add this facility. There's a 10-inch line running between the proposed site and City Hall, and then 2 6-inch lines running north and south on both sides of the structure. So there should be plenty of water available, even in the event that it has to be sprinklered. And I do expect that this building would have to be sprinklered. Not my call to make, but I'm just making an estimate. So that's just some additional data points that I thought the commission might be interested in. And we do have, the bidder, we did have 2 bidders at the bid itself. We had 1 qualified bidder. In order to qualify, you had to prove you had the ability to construct a 20,000 square foot building or larger within 18 months. It had to fit our downtown entertainment zoning ordinance. The structure did itself. And the 1 bid that we did have that was disqualified had no plan for a building to be placed upon it. So that bid did not qualify, so we did not consider it. So the high bidder is Odyssey Theater. I believe they have a representative in the audience tonight, if you'd like to come up and make comment. But it is the recommendation of city staff that you award the bid for the land sale to Odyssey Theater in the amount of $100,000. I'll take any questions that you may have.
Any questions for Mr. Kessel?
I'll reserve mine till after we hear from Odyssey.
Oh. Any questions from remaining commissioners?
No.
I guess there's a lot of people in the audience that would like to speak, and I think it's fair, since the Downtown Association did speak, to allow people to come up if they want to state their opinion. I guess in order of preference, I guess I'd like to hear from Odyssey first if they had a prepared speech. If not, that's fine.
Mr. Steve is in the audience, I believe his business partner as well, so I think they'd have some comments they'd like to make. By the way, Mr. Steve, are you as talented as your daughter, or does that come from your wife's side of the family?
Unfortunately, my wife contributed all that talent.
Okay. For those of you who may not know, his daughter took 3rd place on So You Think You Could Dance, if you watch that. So.
And I can't dance a step. Mr. Mayor, commissioners, city staff, thank you for inviting us to town. Just a little bit of history about us. Odyssey Theaters operates cinemas in towns principally the size of Dickinson. We do so from I guess we do business all the way from Ohio to North Dakota now, and we're based in Minneapolis. We do business in towns like Watertown. Here at Dickinson, we took over the Mall Theater approximately 2012, beginning of 2012. We took that over.
6 years.
6 years, and you know, our intent is typically when we do business in communities like this is to have the best cinema that we can offer for the town. And we've been very busy in the last couple of years. We just actually redeveloped the Watertown, South Dakota cinema, which is a town very similar to Dickinson in terms of its size and demographics. And that was an 8-screen movie theater, and we had an old 1980s build cinema that we just couldn't do anything with. And then it came to the point where we had to redevelop that one, and that one has been a marvelous success. Is that correct, Steve?
Yes, it is. It's we would anticipate similar business levels here in Dickinson based on our knowledge of the market and what the market has done so far. And we would anticipate bringing between 2,000 and 3,000 people on a weekend into downtown Dickinson.
Steve, just for the record, could you introduce yourself? So everybody-
Yeah, I'm Steve Tripp. I'm the president of Odyssey Entertainment.
So we've been pretty successful doing it. It's a niche market for us. I will say it's extremely challenging to develop cineplexes with the types of amenities that we typically want to bring to the market, which is state-of-the-art stuff like lounger seating, online ticket sales, reserved seating, you know, expanded concession and food offerings, and just a general nicer. The screen sizes, by the way, I think would the largest screen would be bigger than the small.
I think the smallest screen would be larger than the biggest screen at the current theater. And it's the same way it worked in Watertown. Our largest screen in Watertown was 4.5 times the size of I'm talking about the actual picture size, than the current large screen, which is almost a twin to the current large screen at the 3-screen Cine 3 here in the mall.
I know parking's a big concern for the folks here, and we as well, we're concerned about it. So, you know, there was a lot of exhaustive discussions with staff about that. So I don't want folks to think that we just came in and said, well, we're going to plop this building down and, you know, everything's going to be, you know, just a giant mess. It's not. We generally, in Watertown, we developed, in that case, it was it was a private parking lot, and we had 204 stalls, I think, and that is doing well. So by my calculations here, there's of the 9 city blocks around this facility, there's 399 stalls on street parking. So given the complementary of our tend to be after business hours, when we typically generate the most traffic, we think that it's complementary. There could be some times and overlaps potentially, but generally speaking, we thought and feel, and have done business in other downtowns, by the way, that it wouldn't be a problem. So we want to make sure you folks understand that, you know, we as much as everybody else is concerned, we were concerned about it and wanted to make sure that that the math worked out.
We generate so much of our business between the hours of 6:30 at night and 11 o'clock. During the school year, our hours of operation are roughly 3:45 in the afternoon for a 4 o'clock movie set. Whenever the school is out, we would open at noon, or actually 12:30 for a 1 o'clock movie set. But typically, we do so much of our, and even in the summer months, those early matinees are, if the weather's nice, of course, are quite sparsely attended. But we open in anticipation of rain, hoping for rain, just like every farmer, I guess, out there. But we do so much of our business when many in the retail community, and especially in the business community, whether it be city, county, private offices, are not utilizing parking stalls.
Other than that, I would just say that, you know, we're small town folks. Steve and I grew up in Worthington, Minnesota, even though we're based in Minneapolis right now, so we don't want the impression that, you know, we're big city developers coming in and just trying to steamroll the local business community. We're not. We want to be part of the business community. We're typically very active in a lot of philanthropic endeavors. So, you know, we hope that, you know, we've spent our time, and it was, by the way, it was very frustrating when we first came to town. We wanted to redo the theater because it is woefully inadequate for the needs of what we like to present, and it's certainly not the image we want to present. And so it's been frustrating trying to pull this together for this long, but it's time, and we believe Dickinson deserves the type of facility that we want to deliver, and bringing the business to downtown. I don't want to make this sound overly inflated, but bringing those kind of people downtown will bring other businesses around us. It always happens. These people, this is when people are on their entertainment and leisure time. This is when they you know, spend their leisure and leisure time income. And we've always found to be businesses around us, at least with these types of facilities, pretty vibrant.
And in Watertown, we are pulling people out of Sioux Falls and Aberdeen all the way to Watertown because we've got electric lounger recliners, big screens, brand new theater facility.
So with that, we'll open it up to questions.
Any questions for the gentleman from Odyssey?
I got a question for Mr. Kessel. I'm not sure about recently, and maybe we still are doing it, but a business downtown that has their own business but not enough parking for their employees and so on, we're assessing them X amount of dollars for every lot they do not have square footage for the building, correct?
Commissioner Steiner, we used to do that. We no longer do that. That special assessment district expired, and so that was not renewed, and that happened about a year ago now. So our downtown businesses, none of them are being special assessed for parking or snow removal.
Okay, thank you.
Then clearly, you've done your due diligence. That's why you've looked at your current location. That's why you've looked at downtown and weighed the pros and cons of both of them. How many screens do you think a community the size of Dickinson can support adequately?
We're looking at 8 screens.
I understand you're looking at 8 screens, but as you depart your current location, there's probably a good likelihood that it'll be backfilled in at least with 3 screens.
Well, the barriers of entry in the motion picture business are very stiff,
Okay.
very expensive for equipping and setting up a movie theater. Everything in that theater, from the chairs to the equipment, is ours and will be removed. With that said, there's also, Hollywood is pretty stringent on how big of an area, population center, before they would put 2 theaters playing day and date, so to speak.
The same movie.
The same movie.
Same movies, right.
And we just don't anticipate that happening. In Watertown, for example, which is a town of 24,000, the 5-screen theater has been empty for 7 months since we opened our new theater. And certainly there is that possibility.
It happens. In Hutchinson, Minnesota, we have a 9-screen and the little 3-screen downtown. You know, a retired gentleman bought it and thought he was going to have fun and then made a hobby of it and opened it up. He doesn't play the same movies we play. He plays the movies that we get done with, or he goes in the second run. But he's been around for some time, so, it can happen.
And it's a friendly coexisting. When
Yeah.
his popcorn machines broke down, we make popcorn for him.
Yeah, we make
and
popcorn for him.
things like that, so.
So no, it can happen, but it's unlikely.
Okay.
Any other questions?
Mr. President, you stated that you have feeders in similar towns downtown. Can you explain how many lots are available for your feeder and if it's a similar scenario in terms of parking?
I was involved with another company several years ago that had some downtown properties. Currently, we don't have a downtown property per se, but I was involved with others that did. And there was a very small lot across from a 5-screen theater that was a very successful 5-screen theater. And that lot would fill up, and then people would park on street parking, and it never was an issue that we were made aware of. And in fact, right next door to us was the city auditorium, which certain times events were going on at the auditorium, and the theater was open, and it was never an issue. Not that was brought to our attention ever by the city or by customers.
And in that instance, Mr. Tripp is referring to St. Croix Falls, Wisconsin, by the way. But that downtown was built into a bluff, so there was no parking of the city blocks behind it. So there was really there was many fewer city blocks available for parking.
Strictly north and south, no
Yeah.
east and west, because there's
Right.
a river to the west and bluff to the east. So
The only one concern we do have, I'll be honest with you, is what happens in a snow emergency. If there's a big snow, I mean, you'll have potentially people come to the movies when there's snow. I don't know why, but they do. And so, and cooped up, but people come out, and with the snow emergency and the parking, I mean, we would, we're concerned about how that might work, although it's managed in other cities fairly well, but it's something obviously we would want to coordinate, the effort with the city staff on. So.
I've had a few questions from citizens that are just want to know the timeline and how you got to be downtown. Why you're choosing. And you don't have to get into it too clearly, but just maybe present a quick timeline just so people understand kind of how long you guys have been working on this project and how you got here today.
we started over 4.5 years ago, and we've dealt with almost every major development in the Dickinson area, from Roars to Five Diamond to some very Lamont, all of which presented some significant challenges. In fact, one actually went out to an early bidding process, and it was just ridiculous. Now that, of course, was a different time frame too, but there was just a lot of challenges.
There's been some renaissance too in terms of the movie-going industry. You're starting to see more entertainment type venues like this being reestablished into downtown areas. Kansas City, AMC Theaters redid the downtown theater in Leawood, which is their hometown, and I think it's like 6 screens, and it's outgrossing its 18-screen theater that's 6 miles down the road. So it makes sense to do it, because I think there was some earlier commenters about infill and about having the right mixes. These types of things help bring, a vibrant feel to your downtown, and to the extent that we can be part of that, great, and it makes sense, great. It's more affordable for us. We don't have to obviously develop parking lots, which are expensive and quite expensive up here to do. So it does make sense. There's some synergies there that definitely we'd want to take advantage of.
Your rendering of your facility looked really nice. Do you care to, and you don't have to, but total anticipated cost?
About $3.5 million.
About $3.5 million investment that you'd be making in downtown.
We hope. Crossing our fingers. We're using construction data we had before, so we haven't taken it out to bid yet, so no guarantees.
In that ballpark.
Yeah.
Okay.
And when would set completion date be? Do we have a rough range if it were passed?
We would hope
Fall.
to be in the ground as soon as the weather would permit in the spring.
And so then we would be done by the fall of next year, somewhere in that area.
Any other questions? Commissioners, any questions?
Is the public done?
Well, we have a timetable, so hold your questions. So we have a 5:15 timetable. So the first thing up is a special use permit. Thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you.
Special use permit for 1373 First Street South. Planning Director Hadley.
Thank you, Mr. President. This is B Resolution 13, 2017. It is a group daycare. It's currently operated as a family daycare. It has a state approval. It went through our process, and there was one neighbor that showed up in favor of the application based on the improvements that the owner is doing on site. It is right across the alley and adjacent to a city park, as you see. The map, I guess, isn't showing up as well, but it's the home in the center of the slide facing First Street, right there. Yes, thank you, Mr. Kessel. Adjacent to some commercial. It's kind of an area that we have in the redevelopment, and we want to keep it as a single-family area. This is a good improvement. The owner actually did quite a bit of extensive remodeling to this particular facility. Staff would recommend, and the Planning Commission would recommend that you approve Resolution 13-2017.
It's 13-2017.
Yes.
Thank you, Mr. Hadley. Any questions for Mr. Hadley on the special use permit for 1373 First Street South? Not, I would look for a motion.
Move to approve.
Second, Mr. President.
I have a motion to approve the special use permit with a second. Any further questions, comments? Hearing none, we'll vote. Mr. Steiner?
Aye.
Mr. Friedrich?
Aye.
Mr. Altman?
Aye.
Mrs. Trustum?
Aye.
Chair votes aye. Special use permit is approved. Next up, we have a public hearing for, I guess we have 3 minutes, so. If we want to get anybody up for questions.
Sean, have some reports you can do?
Mr. Kessel, can you fill in 3 minutes here with a report?
Absolutely. I can give you the report for the North Dakota League of Cities.
Okay.
Thank you. Okay. So the North Dakota League of Cities just had their annual conference. Myself, Commissioner Frederick, and President Decker all attended that event. I want to thank them for attending as well. I personally attended the consolidated tax statement presentation. That was one that was referenced earlier. That is why our budget, our preliminary budget, will have to be created and complete by August 10th so that we can provide that data to the county, which will result then in a consolidated tax statement that'll be issued to all property tax owners in Dickinson. This is being adopted statewide. It was tested in Cass County. They've been doing it for about 2 years, and the state has decided to adopt a similar process statewide. So that is one of the presentations that I attended. Legislative issues, there was 3 presentations essentially on legislative issues. One call was one of those. It was a good event. Learned a few things that will be upcoming, including, we are hosting our own legislative committee meeting on October 30th and 31st. We'll have the Energy Development and Transmission Legislative Committee here. We have a day and a half of presentations and agenda items that we will be presenting to that group. I had the conversation with the Legislative Council today and presented that draft agenda. The Main Street Initiative, of course, is Our governor made that presentation to the whole audience. That was not a breakout section. And so he emphasized his points regarding downtowns, especially. Just a couple of items to mention. His goal is to have healthy, vibrant, and different communities by focusing on quality of life, arts, culture, food, diverse local retail, walkability and workforce attraction, a 21st century workforce, and smart, efficient infrastructure being his main 3 points. A couple of the quotes that I thought were important is being that we are North Dakota, that the issue regarding being north and our weather is a branding issue rather than being one of latitude, as he put it. If you look at our latitude across the pond, there are great many cities like Berlin and London and Helsinki and so forth and so on that are much, much larger, of course, than anything in North Dakota, and they have the same latitude that we do here. And then the other one is to take people to the differentiated core as opposed to the undifferentiated edge. And the reference there is what's happening in the majority of our cities is we're all becoming cookie cutters of one another. We all have the same or similar businesses that are nationwide, like Walmart and such. And the things that are going to attract people to our communities is not that undifferentiated edge, but that differentiated core. And so he mentioned that if he had the knowledge base he has today, he would have changed his thought process regarding where he would have located Microsoft, because they are located on the undifferentiated edge in Fargo. So did attend that. Medical marijuana was another presentation. That was very good. I'll be sharing that with the rest of the city staff. There was a city administrator's breakfast for the first time where we got to share items of concern that are common to cities of our size. And then there was a mayor's breakfast that was also attended along with President Decker, and then the annual business meeting for the league. So all in all, a very good event. Happy to go. Thank you for allowing that, and worthwhile from a educational and networking standpoint.
Thank you, Mr. Kessel. We'll hold any questions on the report until after the timetable. Right now we have a public hearing on zoning text amendment and zoning code. County Planner Josephson will be presenting.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. Steve Josephson, County Planner, and this is a proposed amendment to the zoning code that I had worked on, and this came about. We're continuously looking at our code to find ways to update it and to improve it. One of the things that we found was when the code was originally approved in the R1 single-family residential district, it permitted single-family attached homes and also allowed duplexes as a special use. Looking at the definition and also the growth of low-density zoning, and also looking at development patterns and practices here in Dickinson, the staff had a discussion that this is really not something that's really compatible and should be allowed in the R1 zoning district. Staff brought this to the Planning and Zoning Commission, and they concurred with this. So Commissioners, you have in front of you, it's an amendment to Chapter 39 that would remove those two uses from as being allowed in the R1 zoning district. This is going to be the first hearing on, this requires 2 hearings, and this is the first hearing on it, and I'm here to answer any questions you may have.
Any questions for Mr. Josephson?
Mr. Josephson, can you explain single-family attached?
Certainly, Commissioner Trustum. That's a case of where you have 2 houses that are attached. They have a common firewall, and what happens is they're both on separate lots. The minimum lot size for that is 4,000 square feet. We've not really seen that happen here in the city. And also, if you look at the fact that the minimum lot size for single family in R1 is 7,500 square feet, and you look at the platted lots in our community and the purpose of the R1 zoning district, it's meant to encourage, larger lots and single family detached.
Any questions, other questions or comments from Mr. Josephson? Well, thank you, Mr. Josephson.
Thank
Since
you.
this will be a public, the first reading, and I'll open it up to the public for a public hearing. If anybody has any concerns, questions for staff, commissioners, please come forward on this zoning text amendment. Come forward, state your name and your concerns. Seeing there's no one from the public, we'll close the public hearing. Commissioners, any questions, concerns about this text amendment?
I would make a motion to approve the first reading of the zoning text amendment.
Okay, we have a motion to approve the first reading of the zoning text amendment.
Second.
And a second. Any further discussion or questions?
Mr. President, just for the record and minutes, this would be ordinance number 1643.
1643, thank you. So this is ordinance 1643. I have a motion to approve and a second. Any more discussion or questions? Hearing none, we'll vote. Mr. Altman?
Aye.
Mr. Friedrich?
Aye.
Mr. Steiner?
Aye.
Mrs. Trustum?
Aye.
Chair votes aye. The first reading is approved. Moving on, we have a public hearing, Renaissance Zone Development Plan Amendment. Planning Director, County Planning, Steve Josephson will present. And this is a resolution, am I correct?
No,
Yes.
this is also an ordinance.
Is it ordinance?
No, this
Okay.
is a resolution.
Oh, it says ordinance on the,
Okay, and this is resolution number,
and this would be resolution number 13-2017.
14.
This would actually be 12-2017. Mr. Hadley jumped ahead on us.
Okay.
On the special use permit.
I blew it.
He's
Okay.
been known to skip in line.
I can't
Okay.
count.
So wait, it's 12-2017.
So this would be 12-2017, just
Okay.
to, we won't miss one.
Good afternoon, Commissioner Steve Josephson. This has been something that staff and the Planning and Zoning Commission have been working on for a while. Back in 2004, the city adopted Renaissance Zone Development Plan. This is permitted and also by the Century Code, and also has been promoted by the state of North Dakota. I think we have about 50 cities in the state that have Renaissance Zone programs. In 2015, the Renaissance Zone legislation was amended so that it would allow cities to increase the number of blocks that they could include within their Renaissance Zone. So the city at this point wishes to take advantage of that. At the same time, we looked at our original Renaissance Zone to see if there were portions of it that hadn't been active, and if we could move those into areas where we felt development was needed. And basically what you can see is the idea is to expand primarily to the west and to make a link with Dickinson State University, encourage development along that west of Villard commercial corridor, and then a little bit to the east too. We had a public meeting to solicit community comment. We also sent out letters to each of the property owners that were proposed for removal and got no objections received no objections from those property owners. We held a public hearing in front of the Planning and Zoning Commission, and they recommended approval. We have also met and received endorsement from from Dickinson Public Schools, the Stark Development Corporation, Parks and Recreation Commission, the County Commission, and we received a letter of endorsement from Dickinson State University. We also sent our proposals. We've been working closely with the State Department of Community Affairs, and they have informally told us that they're fine with the proposed amendments. So you have in front of you a resolution, and I'm here to answer any questions you may have.
Thank you, Mr. Josephson. Any questions for Mr. Josephson? Comments?
Mr. Josephson, will you just explain the incentives of expanding the Renaissance Zone?
Okay, how about the incentives of the Renaissance Zone program
That
itself?
would work,
The idea is to encourage development in older areas of the city where perhaps, it's expensive to, where perhaps because of growth elsewhere, these areas have been neglected, or they need a jump start for development. And there's an emphasis on both single-family residential and also commercial properties. In the case of a residential property, in Dickinson, you can receive up to 5 years of property tax relief. It doesn't mean you're not going to pay any property taxes. It means your assessment is frozen for 5 years after your project is completed, and that's for single-family homes. The stipulation the city has is that once you do that improvement, you're going to agree to stay in that single-family home during that period. And then there's the commercial aspect, which is 50% of the assessed value for commercial properties. And again, the same thing, where you can get that up to 5 years, and also the state freezes your income tax over that period of time. And it's an opportunity for those property owners who maybe they want to replace their heating and air conditioning, their electrical system, their plumbing, and make some necessary improvements in order to make their facade, do some facade work. Maybe it's going to make their building more attractive, or maybe they have someone who will come in if they will do those expensive updates. I know a couple of the recent projects that are visible here are, well, the Esquire Club was an example of Renaissance Zone program. Ms. Schwartz has a building on First and First that was recently renovated. One of the big things downtown is American Bank Center has had 2 projects. So we're also moving to promote this program so that more property owners and downtown business people will know about it and utilize it.
Any other questions for Mr. Josephson? Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Well, at this time, I'd open up to the public. Come forward if you have any questions on the Renaissance Zone Development Plan. Either concerns or just comment about it. Come forward, state your name for the commission. Seeing no one from the public, we'll close the public hearing. Commissioners, any questions or comments? Not, I'd look for a motion on this resolution.
Move to approve Resolution 12, 2017.
We have a motion to approve 12-2017.
Mr. President, I'll second that.
And we have a second. Any further discussion or comments or questions? Hearing none, we'll vote. Mrs. Trustum?
Aye.
Mr. Friedrich?
Aye.
Mr. Altman?
Aye.
Mr. Steiner?
Aye.
Chair votes aye. 12-2017 is approved, the first reading. All right, we're going to go back to our parking lot sale. And where we kind of ended off was with the Odyssey gentlemen presenting their case. I would open it up to the public now.
President
You want to
Decker,
come?
I do have a couple questions
Oh,
for the Odyssey
okay.
folks, if you don't
Okay.
mind.
If you guys don't mind coming back up.
Two questions, essentially. The first one is, we've had discussions in the past about your level of concessions that you intend on providing. I guess I'll let you answer that question. What do you intend to provide your customers in terms of concessionaires?
Well, first of all, I'd like to say that we don't want to compete with downtown restaurants. We want to complement downtown restaurants. However, we do offer expanded concessions with things such as hot dogs in our Watertown facility, and we would expect here with White Castle hamburgers and chicken sandwiches, that type of stuff. Again, we believe wholeheartedly in dinner and a movie, not necessarily dinner at the movie. So we want to complement the area restaurants and establishments that are already existing.
And related to that, one of the trends that I've noticed, I've been in theaters and other communities where they actually try to get a liquor license from the local city to offer those beverages at the theater. Do you have intentions to do the same?
To date, we have not. We have in the past had it in theaters that we have sold, but that certainly is the trend now, and more so it's beer and wine, not hard liquor, but that certainly is a trend. We have not decided either way yet whether we would consider that.
Okay.
We did not do it in Watertown. Okay. I mean, as a conscious effort, we could have, but we didn't. We're still studying the concept. I know it's pretty popular in bigger cities right now, but we still haven't been. We have a big group event family business that once we have a facility that can handle that kind of stuff. So we're not quite sure how that mixes, but to that point we can't rule it out.
I'm glad you're here tonight, because then you heard that your staff would have to be at least 18 years old to provide that. My last question is, this concept was actually a larger structure probably 6 months ago and involved other businesses. At that point, I believe you were willing to allow your theaters, when they weren't being utilized for movies, to be used for staff meetings or other meeting-related things. Is that still a concept that you're interested in or have thought about?
Yeah, in fact, we do that. That doesn't like me. We do that in many communities when people want to do something like that. I can say we don't get a lot of requests from it, but perhaps in a downtown area we would. And especially with the advent of digital projection, there's so many more opportunities to do things, to present something on a screen. We've done everything from people asking people to get married on the big screen, marriage proposals. It's just amazing what the public will come up with.
The other bigger companies sometimes will bring in they'll bring in employees and do simulcasts from multi-locations, and the technology that we put in the cinemas now blends right into it. So you can do picture within a picture and all that kind of stuff. Where maybe say, for example, I know just like in Rochester, Minnesota, where we do business, IBM comes in and they say, okay, we're going to have the IBM folks and we're going to be talking to the Schenectady, New York folks, and they interlink it all together. That technology now exists.
Okay. And based on that, you have, I think, three different theater sizes in this structure. Can you just provide, if you're able, kind of how many seats will be in each of those sizes theater? Just
The seat counts we give you will be unbelievably deceiving, because these chairs are now this wide, and they take a space from here to this gentleman, because they recline and people have to still walk in front of them. So the actual box size of an auditorium is deceiving when I give you the seat numbers. In Watertown, for example, our smallest theaters, and there are 4 of them, seat 49 people. And that screen is still larger than the big screen at the Cinema 3 out here.
okay.
I think our largest auditorium there is 146, right? And there are 2 of those, and then there's 2 at 90, and then there's 4 at 49. We seat just under 600 people in the entire building. And that building at 24,000 square feet with conventional rockers or fixed chairs would seat over 1,300.
Okay. Thank you. That concludes my questions.
Anything else?
Any other questions for the gentleman from Odyssey?
Thank you very much.
Thank you. I'll open it up to the public. I know that the Downtown Association has spoken. If anyone from the public would like to come up, state their concerns, or have any questions for us, the staff, or the gentleman from Odyssey, please come forward, state your name.
Hello, I'm Tom Mitchell. I'm president of Dickinson State University, and thank you for allowing me to address the committee. I would like to speak in favor of this proposal and partially dealing with some of the decisions that have been made here tonight on the Renaissance Zone and the way it is spreading. I look at Dickinson as an extremely walkable style of city, and myself, selfishly, we have a campus a little under a mile away from the downtown area. We have over 200 employees and over 1,400 students. Hopefully, we'll be at about 1,800 or 1,900 in the next 3 years. Those students can walk to the downtown area. Now, if they, I have seen this happen, they will try to walk up to the far side of the city to take in a movie. I would rather see them walk downtown. I like the way they're crafting the movie theater so that it is not competing with what is happening downtown, but more is complementing what is happening downtown. One of the things that I hear on my own campus is that our families will go to Bismarck to go to the movies. They just have more diversity, more screens. And the thing is that when you do this, you aren't just going to a movie. Nobody's going to drive down, take in a movie, and turn around and come home. It is a day-long event. You take in lunch, or you take in dinner, or you take in the sights and entertainment of downtown. And I think that Dickinson has been moving in such a good direction in the last several years that this could continue to be a catalyst that would allow for it to move forward. So a couple of reasons. I think what is happening now in the downtown area, and I will speak a little bit because it's public, Stark Development Corporation is giving $25,000 grants to anybody in the downtown area to try to better their facade, better their area around there. This all builds into what I see as just a really nice movement for the city overall. And so I would respectfully hope that we can pass this and allow it to go forward. Thank you. I'm happy to answer any questions you may have.
Thank you, Dr. Mitchell. Any questions or comments for Dr. Mitchell? Thank you.
Thank you.
Anyone else from the public like to come forward? Your concerns, questions for city staff, commissioners? Anyone? Okay, we'll close the public hearing. No one wants to come forward. Commissioners, questions for staff? Questions or comments?
Mr. President, I have a couple comments. I think it's a fantastic plan. I really like the design, if that's what it's going to look at. I think it's great. If we can tie it in with the college downtown, that's even better. I think the community needs something like this. I'm in favor of it. What I'm not in favor of it is the location. I'm even in favor of it being at this location. But from the beginning, I've always said that I can't support it until we replace every spot we lose with a new spot. I've been on this commission for 18 years. There's one thing that's come up every year. It's been parking downtown. And it hasn't been a compliment about our parking downtown. It's been a complaint about it. And it looks like that's going to continue for 2 more years. You know, in the last 3, 4, 5 years, we've actually caught up paving some extra parking lots, creating new parking lots, to where we didn't quite hear the complaint about parking, about no parking. It looks like I'll finish out in 20 years addressing parking issues again for the city. But I like the project, love the project, even like the location. But I said from the beginning, again, to sum it up, I would like to, you know, just tie something into it. The value that we put on that lot when it went out for bids was $100,000. I didn't think that was a reasonable minimum bid. Personally, I would have liked to have seen a $200,000 minimum bid for the reason of we have private lots in town that are going for close to $100,000, private residential lot. This lot here is probably the most prime commercial lot in Dickinson, and we're getting $100,000 for it. If we would have got $200,000 minimum, we probably could have walked right across the street to the vacant lot there, slapped down some cash vat over there, and our parking problem would have been solved.
I don't think you would have got a willing seller there.
I know who we're talking about, and I think there's other options, but, you know, so.
When it comes to the lots, even if we were.
It's my discussion here. So, that 100,000, don't take anything bad out of it. I just don't think it was it's a fair price for you guys, not a fair price for the city. Okay. I wish the Downtown Dickinson Association would have had a better discussion amongst their members. I've received texts and emails from half of the Downtown Dickinson Association people saying, well, you don't have any parking. And yet, this is supposedly, and I think it would benefit them, okay? And then the other half, obviously, is in favor of, so I wish that they would have came forward with more weight, one way or the other, to give us a better idea of what DDA really felt. So, my feeling is, I don't think it's gonna be defeated tonight. I think it's gonna pass. I think we're gonna have a nice building and everything. But I had to speak out on behalf of the business owners downtown who will be affected one way or the other on this. Some will be affected greatly by it if the movies get over and they go to the other restaurants and so on. I think it's fantastic. The ones that won't be positively affected by it would be the savings bank, business directly kitty corner. I don't think any of your customers will come out of there and go into those buildings and increase their walk-through traffic, So those people are the ones that I've been hearing about to where, it's gonna affect, and we're building lots up north here, and we've all said people just don't want to walk 2 blocks, which is, some places they will walk 2 blocks, if they're not in town, it seems like. So, I like it, but I'm going to have to vote no tonight. I wish we could have taken it out and replaced spot for spot. This wouldn't have been an issue. Thank you, guys.
Finished? Okay. Any other commissioners? Comments?
I've gone back and forth on this. And while the price may be one issue, Carson, the parking, you have to look at, right now, it's really a parking lot. And it sits there and although we are providing parking for downtown area, the city is not gaining any revenue from that, never has. Or the next 10 years, we stand to gain another $400,000 in property taxes above and beyond the price that we sell it for. That's a $500,000 swing, and actually it'll go on, in perpetuality as long as the building's there and there's an owner and the business is viable. And you'll probably see that property tax level increase over the number of years. You also will be looking at hospitality and sales tax dollars being generated from a bigger facility. Those are monies that we use for our senior projects. Those are monies that we use for trail improvement. Those are monies that we tap into every time somebody comes to us looking for the city's help in developing another project that serves the citizens. So you have to take all of that into consideration. We've paid for studies. We've looked at studies. We've had renderings. And we finally have a developer that's willing to put money into the ground. We've had lots of dreams as a city of what we want our downtown to look like. We've had lots of visions. We've never actually had somebody come in with $3 million and say that they want to plunk down a building in the middle of downtown and make a go of it. To echo a lot of words that you've said in the past, Carson, during 2012, 13, and 14, you said, if we ever had a chance to develop our downtown and get something going downtown, now is it. We actually have an option in front of us that.
Because there was
fulfills-
parking available in those drawings.
Well, at some point, you have to believe the Downtown Association and their studies, and that infilling in a downtown will actually breed more businesses, and that this has happened in other communities, and people get used to parking a block away instead of right in front of the building that they're going into, based on what they are downtown for. And again, I've struggled with this on both sides of the equation. And it really wasn't until tonight, seeing the presentation, seeing the backing of the Downtown Association, seeing the new director for the Downtown Association. That's something that we haven't had before. It's really going to give us as a city a leg up for ferreting out some of those other issues like parking that the downtown has. I think if we've ever been on the cusp of starting to achieve what we want to downtown, this kicks that can.
Commissioners, Mr. Trustum, Mr. Fritz.
Just a comment, Mr. President, just to kind of echo what Mr. Oltmans has just said. And I've heard both sides, and I've went back and forth, and my office is a block north of here, so I know what downtown parking is like. I'm down here every day. And it's, listening to the size of the theaters tonight, I wish this presentation was a month ago and not tonight when we were putting this out for bids. Because I think there's a lot of misinformation out there. There's a lot of Facebook and social media posts about misinformation. I mean, the times they're talking about are different than the times that people are down here business. I don't like the fact we are losing the 30 spots or 26 spots, but I think there's some opportunities, and maybe, guys from Odyssey can work with some adjacent landowners in the future to maybe try to pick some of those up, or maybe the city can. I don't really know what the option is, but with that, I'm all about business development and economic development in Dickinson, and when you have somebody willing to stick $2-3 million into downtown Dickinson, I don't know how much more of a jump start you can ask for than that. I mean, it'd be hard. It's hard pressed for me to look at them and say that we don't want you here. Go spend your money somewhere else. That's my opinion on it. So.
Any comments, Ms. Trustum?
Yes, Mr. President, thank you. I'm going to echo the sentiments of Commissioner Frederick and Commissioner Oltmans. I think we've all been back and forth because we are listening, and we know there are valid concerns from citizens of Dickinson, and we also know that there are things that we need to move forward as a community. If we don't encourage change, we will never see it. I understand that parking is a grave concern, but I don't necessarily know if it is an issue yet. I mean, according to this study, we had over 333 surplus spots. And can we make this available, the agenda, so that people can take a look at this?
Absolutely, we can post that to our website.
Great.
Yep.
But the parking analysis is very interesting, and even I haven't had a whole lot of time to dig into it. I did speak with Mike Riesinger, part owner of the Brickhouse Grill, and he wanted me to express his support for the sale. He did think that it would do great things for downtown, and he sees this as something that will really encourage growth. One of the things I wanted to ask, I actually spoke with the city of Williston and spoke with some other communities, because I wanted to gauge some of the same concerns that they may be having. I know the city of Williston has 2 movie theaters downtown. One is a 3-screen, I believe the other is 2 or 3. Do you know by chance? Well, I spoke with the city to just kind of gauge what their issues were, and they said actually they had just recently changed their parking ordinance downtown that only limits 2-hour parking during business hours, which I think that would be something we could possibly look at, because I know that that's a big concern for downtown business owners, is that people park there and don't move their car all day. So maybe, you know, that's a discussion we can have with downtown Dickinson and see if businesses would be supportive. We would definitely want to hear what they had to say. But I think that will conclude my comments.
I always look at development like this is going to tax people and be uncomfortable and cause people to get out of their norm. And our plan, our ultimate plan for the downtown is much bigger, but includes things like Odyssey Theater. We're gonna develop the square, if we're going to redo our sewer and water downtown and our streets, it's all gonna make people uncomfortable. It's all going to tax the way you usually do things. And ultimately, we've had the discussion. We've talked about possibility of an event center in Dickinson. And one of the locations possibly will be, you know, downtown. If something like this is stopped, well, why are we doing the other stuff? We have to keep bringing these quality of life projects to Dickinson. And we have somebody here that is willing to put money into our community. And yes, we're gonna lose some spots, but as I've said before, a lot of the downtown parking is a convenience issue. There's a lot of parking. You just might have to walk a little bit farther. I spent the weekend down in Fargo at the League of Cities. They had a big event downtown. I could have easily parked 3 blocks away and walked right in. But me being selfish, I drove around for 30 minutes and looked for a spot so that I only had to walk 1 block. There's parking. Our downtown's not that big. Yes, our weather isn't always an issue, but we are going to weather that. So I think this is great. I wish there was some other locations that we just had an abundance of land. But as the governor said at the convention this weekend, if he would have did it all again, Microsoft would have been downtown Fargo. Can you imagine the parking problem in Fargo if it would have been downtown Fargo? So, and he's big on infill. I know they're going to divert money to a project that Mr. Kubis is going to talk about later, talking about working our downtowns and developing our downtowns. So that's all I have to say about this project anymore. And I guess ultimately, since we are finishing up with our discussion, I would look for a motion to consider the approval of the sale or deny the approval.
Mr. President, I'll make a motion to approve the sale.
We have a motion to approve the sale
Second.
and a second. Any further discussion or questions? No other questions? We'll go ahead and vote. Mr. Friedrich?
Aye.
Mrs. Trustum?
Aye.
Mr. Altman?
Aye.
Mr. Steiner?
No?
Chair votes aye. Sale is approved. Moving on, we're going to go to the monthly hiring journal. Mrs. Nominick.
Good evening, Mr. President, Commissioners. First on our list, we have police officer positions. Right now, we've got 2 openings. We are in the background phase of 1 applicant, and we just opened the position again for interviews. It just opened up, actually, so it'll be advertised for a couple weeks, and then we'll do interviews. We had a police sergeant internal opening. We're still in the interview phase of that position. Communication specialist, we had 2 openings. We did interviews on that, and we did make offers on 2 of them. We're still in the background phase. We had a temporary records clerk position that we are going to fill. That person will start next week for us on a temporary basis. We had an opening for a firefighter, and that position was filled, actually with an internal applicant from the water department. He was a volunteer for us for the fire department and went over to the fire department as a full-time firefighter. We have the city attorney position still open. We will be doing those interviews next week. We have a senior engineering technician that has been very difficult to fill. We've had it open several times and had very few applicants. Right now, we're looking at opening the position as an engineering technician, and we'll be looking to redo that job description before we open that up. Because of the firefighter taking, the water operator taking the firefighter position, we had a position open in the water department. We are in the interview phase of that position right now. We did hire a part-time position for water department for like an admin assistant position, and that's been filled. And then we had 2 limited hour library assistant positions that were filled. We also opened and interviewed internally for an assistant library director, and that position has been filled and accepted. That's all I've got right now.
Any questions for Mrs. Dominic? I see on here for the city attorney, we had 3 applicants,
Correct.
and you'll be interviewing all 3 next week?
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, Mr. Kessler, you got a thank you note?
President Decker, yes, there's a thank you note from the South Harbor Senior Center. They were a recipient of the Senior Citizen Grant earlier, and they're just expressing their appreciation for that grant. We also added a brief report on the Hurricane Harvey incident with Dickinson, Texas. I provided to you an update previously, how I'd reached out to Dickinson, Texas. I did speak with their mayor, Julie Masters. She indicated that they were in need of cleaning supplies, non-perishables, new clothes, preferably with tags on them for kids in kindergarten through 12th. And I did share those efforts with some of the existing efforts to bring materials down to this area. I did get an update today that 2 semis full of materials were delivered to the Dickinson, Texas Fire Department. They included pallets of water, canned foods, non-perishables, generators, power cords, water pumps, and bleach. So the participants that really helped out with gathering and providing transportation down to Dickinson, Texas were that list that's before you: Elite Power, McCorney Clinic, Cordova Excavation, Steyer Oilfield Services, USI Insurance, Cenex of Richardson, Braun Distributing, Jody Arthod's family, Two's Construction, and Denny's Electric. So I just want to applaud all those people and those that provided some of the materials that went down to Dickinson, Texas for their generosity, and I'm sure they'll be very appreciative once that stuff arrives. So wanted to make sure I mentioned that report. And then the last thing that I have this evening then was the 5 o'clock agenda item timetable that unfortunately our speakers couldn't attend. What they were going to present is another small contract with the Western Dakota Energy Association. If you remember, last biennium, the AE2S was engaged to do a gap analysis of certain communities. They called it the 6 City Study. That gap analysis, I have the results in my office. I can share that with anybody who'd like to see it. Resulted in a presentation at the legislature. We had very good attendance from local legislators. It was done very early on in the legislative session, and it summarized the needs in 6 cities in western North Dakota. Those included some small cities and some large cities. We, of course, were one of those members. They're looking to do something similar this session, and we'd like to Again, the Western Dakota Energy Association is bearing the brunt of the cost. They're putting $50,000 into the contract with AE2S. They will also be subcontracting a little bit of that work out with Jadestone Consulting. For those of you who may know, Jadestone is primarily Brent Bogar. He has done work for the Western Dakota Energy Association in the past as well, and is very well respected at the Capitol. The idea here is to again present, there's 6 different tasks that they'd be presented to do. They provide information on city growth, benchmarking, and operational impact, infrastructure and capital improvements, a financial model and forecast, and then document those results. This was, I believe, worthwhile. The last session, they're asking us to participate one more time. Our dollars would be capped at no more than $15,000. It is an hourly number, or so it could be less than that. It could be fairly significantly less than that. From the last I heard is we've had a couple of counties have volunteered to join, so that would lower our overall costs. So I'm guessing our costs will be between $10,000 and $15,000. I am the incoming president of Western Dakota Energy Association, and this, I think, is going to be the base document, the foundational document for us and our efforts to continue to lobby the legislature for funding to, for especially oil hub cities. I mentioned the committee meeting that we're hearing on October 30th and 31st. There are some in our legislature who do not believe that the concept of oil hub cities or the funding of oil hub cities is appropriate any longer. It's difficult for us to understand from those communities that are considered oil hub cities, because we still do feel the impacts. We do see the things that continue to happen. I will mention our debt. We have $5 million in debt that was accumulated because of oil impacts, and that debt should continue to be paid off by state GPT revenue funds. So I think that the funding of this is in our best interest. We'll make sure that we put it on the agenda for the next city commission meeting. Make sure that we get Mr. Jeff Simon here, who is the executive director of the WDEA, and he can present as well. And then if you have any questions for me tonight, I'll try to answer those, or you can certainly save those for for Jeff when he comes at the next city commission meeting.
Any questions for Mr. Kessel on this report?
Thank you. That concludes my reports then.
And I have, under reports, I think we moved this.
Oh, the proclamation.
The
yeah.
proclamation. I have a proclamation before me from the Dickinson Fire Department. City of Dickinson, North Dakota proclamation. Whereas the City of Dickinson, North Dakota is committed to ensuring the safety and security of all those living and visiting Dickinson. And whereas the U.S. Fire Departments responded to 365,500 home fires in 2015, according to the National Fire Protection Association. And whereas the U.S. home fires resulted in 2,560 civilian deaths in the 2015, representing the majority, 78% of all U.S. fire deaths. And whereas newer homes are built with lightweight materials that burn faster than older home construction. And whereas many of today's products and furnishings produce toxic gases and smoke when burned, making it impossible to see and breathe within moments. And whereas these conditions contribute to a much smaller window of time for people to escape a home fire safely, with people having as little as 1 to 2 minutes to escape from the time the smoke alarm sounds. And whereas a home fire escape plan provides the skill set and know-how to quickly and safely escape a home fire situation. And whereas a home fire escape plan includes 2 exits from every room in the home, a path to the outside from each exit, smoke alarms in all required locations, and a meeting place outside where everyone in the home will meet upon exiting. And whereas home fire escape plans should be developed by all members of the household. And whereas practicing a home fire escape plan twice a year ensures that everyone in the household knows what to do in a real fire situation. Whereas Dickinson fire responders are dedicated to reducing the occurrence of home fires and home fire injuries through prevention and protection education. And whereas Dickinson residents are responsive to public education measures and are able to take personal steps to increase their safety from fire especially in their homes. And whereas the 2017 Fire Prevention Week theme, Every Second Counts, plan 2 Ways Out, effectively serves to educate the public about the vital importance of developing a home fire escape plan with all members of the household and practicing it twice a year. Therefore, I, Scott Decker, Mayor of Dickinson, do hereby proclaim October 8th through the 14th, 2017 as Fire Prevention Week throughout this community. I urge all the people of Dickinson to find and develop a home fire escape plan with all the members of the household and practice it twice a year, and to participate in the many public safety activities and efforts of Dickinson Fire and Emergency Services during Fire Prevention Week 2017. In witness whereof, I hereunto set my hand and cause this seal affixed. And I would look for a motion to approve this proclamation.
So moved.
Second.
A motion to approve and a second. Any discussion? Hearing none, will vote. Mrs. Trustum?
Aye.
Mr. Altman?
Aye.
Mr. Steiner?
Aye.
Mr. Friedrich?
Aye.
Chair votes aye. Proclamation is approved, and I have used up all my whereases for the month. Okay, we're done with reports. Nothing from fire or police tonight. Move on to engineering. Mr. Kubis, truck route.
Thank you, President Decker. In front of you this evening is a truck route resolution. On the overhead is a map, and we discussed this at our public hearing at the last meeting, September 18th, regarding changes to the truck route. There was overwhelming support to continue the use of the southeast truck route in Dickinson as shown, and to make changes to the northwest portion of the truck route to reflect the memorandum of understanding that we have with the DOT. Included in your packets are this map and the resolution that reflect that discussion from September 18th. City staff would recommend approval of the resolution, I believe, if I'm on the right math track, 14-2017. So city staff would recommend approval.
Any questions for Mr. Kubis? Comments? So essentially, for the public, the only thing coming out is 30th.
Correct. 30th, we'd move out to the permanent bypass.
I would look for a motion on this resolution.
Make a motion to approve.
We have a motion to approve the resolution.
Second.
Since we had the public hearing, we don't need to do that again. Okay. So we have a motion to approve and a second. Any further discussion or questions for Mr. Kubis or staff? Hearing none, we'll vote. Mr. Altman?
Aye.
Mr. Friedrich?
Aye.
Mr. Steiner?
Aye.
Mrs. Trustum?
Aye.
Chair votes aye. Resolution is approved. Mr. Kubis?
Thank you. The next item is a task order for the West Dickinson traffic study. At the last meeting, the commission had agreed to award that project to KLJ based on their RFP that they had, or the proposal that they had submitted to the city. We've had 2 meetings with them since that meeting on September 18th. At one meeting, Mayor Decker was there. At another meeting, Commissioner Steiner was able to meet with KLJ. We talked about the scope of the work and the fee that would be charged for it. We did add one intersection from the proposal that was presented 2 weeks ago, and that was the intersection just west of the middle school. So there are 15 total intersections that would be studied on 21st Street, State Avenue, and 30th Avenue / the business loop. So we think it's going to be a good study. I would add that in that time frame, the DOT, we've had some discussions with them, and they're also doing a study on the interchange on exit 59, which is our 30th Avenue / West Business Loop. So there might be some changes on their end with that interchange as well. And with that, staff would recommend any approval. I'd be open to any questions you might have.
Thank you, Mr. Kubis. Any questions for Mr. Kubis? I know in our discussions, this kind of evolved into more of a corridor type study now to keep the flow of the traffic and the concerns of the citizens.
It
especially
did,
with the
yeah.
schools.
It's generally the same intersections, but they look more at the interconnectiveness of those intersections, especially the ones that are less than a quarter mile from each other, to make sure that the traffic's flowing from a stoplight to a signal, or vice versa, that we get good traffic flow.
That'd be a good study.
So I would look for a motion on this task order.
Make a motion to approve. Second.
Okay, we have a motion to approve and a second. Any further discussion or questions? Not, we'll vote. Mr. Steiner?
Aye.
Mr. Altman?
Aye.
Mrs. Trustum?
Aye.
Mr. Friedrich?
Aye.
Chair votes aye. Task order is approved. You have a report, Mr. Kubis?
Yes, Mayor Decker. This goes back quite a while, and I apologize for the delay in this. We had talked about a water and sewer improvement district in North Dickinson several months ago, like January. And at that time, Commission had directed staff to send out a letter to the affected owners, gauging the interest of the project. We hadn't approved a district, we hadn't approved special improvements, but we did engage a consultant to do this study. So we had sent out letters to all the property owners inside the red outlined area. For reference, the northwest corner of this is Northern Improvements Shop. The southwest corner of the area is Coca-Cola bottling. So we sent out those letters. Included in your packet were the responses. I would say in general, the comments were not in favor of the project. The main reason cited for not being in favor of the project was that they already had adequate services, or that services weren't needed for their properties. So with that, we'd take some direction, input on how to move forward with this. Like I said, based on the packets that you've received, I didn't tally them all up, but there were, I think, a total of 1 that was in favor of the project, and all the rest, which was probably close to 20, were not in favor of the project.
I think you pretty much summed that up.
So,
Okay. So, commissioners,
I would feel comfortable leaving it as is for now. It's not a high priority type project that we need to go into and spend money in special assess. I would say give it some more time.
Okay. I think that's really what the property owners here want to hear. Is this something that's going to come up annually? And it always at the the wishes of the property owners could change too. So
Yep.
to say it's never going to happen, I think is not true. But
When we annexed this in, the argument was that we wouldn't be built out that far for 25 years. It happened within 3 that we butted up against
Very
that
quickly.
and beyond. So things will change.
All right.
That's fine.
So moving on, the last item that Mr. Kessel had added under engineering was a DOT program initiative that we got some correspondence from the DOT several weeks ago. We had a meeting back on the 22nd, I believe, of September with other city engineers. And the program that they're calling it the Urban Grant Program. And what it intends to do is to if I read my notes here, maybe it makes a little more sense. The program's focus would be to leverage dollars spent, state or federal dollars spent on our downtown to create economic stimulus. In general, the program would not fund rehabbing roads or reconstructing roads, but it would fund enhancements to those projects, or just enhancements in general to a downtown, not the downtown, but a core area. I think that core area that we show on the map is what the DOT selected. It doesn't necessarily match our downtown district, our downtown overlay district, our Renaissance zone. So that exact limits, I think, would be up for discussion based on input from this body. The types of enhancements that they were considering, and they're trying to be very open-minded as to what those could be, would be things like decorative lighting, benches, planters and landscaping, bike racks, utility cabinet wraps, curb extensions and bulb outs, and other outside of the box things traditionally not funded through DOT type projects. So the program, I think, I don't want to speak for the other cities in general, everyone's very supportive of this. Everyone wants a nice downtown in Dickinson and other communities. The rub, if there definitely was one, would be where the money comes from. Right now, the state receives $16 million that they allocate to the urban centers, of which Dickinson is one of those urban centers. There are 11 urban centers. The proposal is to take $8 million of the $16 million, which we receive now through formula. We get about $930,000. We'd take half of that, and it would be eligible to all those urban centers through a competitive grant program annually. So it's not to say we're losing the money. It's just that the allocation process would be different for half of it. I guess with that, you know, they've extended the deadline for comments back. I know Mr. Kessel's commented back to my email already. If you had other comments, I'd be happy to talk to you offline. I know it's a lot of information to digest, but it's a significant amount of money that we usually, or I'd say historically, have used for maintenance type projects or reconstruction projects. So there's a trade-off. This is specifically designated for enhancement dollars. It might open some opportunities up for some different things that typically aren't funded by the DOT though.
But the potential is there also to, if we have the right projects, we come up with good projects, to get more than we usually get.
Yes, absolutely.
There's no cap.
The cap is $8 million.
Okay.
Right now, and that'll probably change with
Right.
the federal money they get. But they said absolutely, you know, you could get a $100,000 project, you could get an $8 million project too.
Right.
And the application is all in draft form right now. I think they're looking, like I said, to leverage the money that they're spending in the urban centers in North Dakota and to try and create some economic stimulus with those dollars.
Okay. Any questions or comments for Mr. Kubis? We just finished up, Mr. Kessel, the urban grant report. Did you have any comments on the urban grant report or questions for Mr. Kubis?
Mr. Kubis and I have talked about this report. I think this is a really interesting to hear your comments. I love the concept in terms of its focus on the downtown. As you heard tonight, you know, there's a lot of focus that we're trying to accomplish with the planning we've done. And this may be a way for us to get to that point. It comes, of course, at a cost, an annual cost, and that's our biggest concern, or at least my biggest concern. I worry about the impact to the East Business Loop that's currently scheduled to be reconstructed in 2021. I'm not sure if that'll be postponed if this goes through, because we may not have the dollars accumulated that we would need. So I'm all for the project. I think they need to find a different revenue source. We heard that at the city administrator meeting that I referenced earlier at the North Dakota League of Cities. Again, everyone's in favor of the project, but there's state dollars that could be utilized instead of using federal dollars. The other thing that maybe Engineer Kubis have mentioned is that the size of projects that would be required, because when you do a federal project, there's a lot of rules and regulations and hoops you have to jump through that makes them expensive. And any small project or small community that has a project, it might just price them right out of the project itself. So there are definitely some concerns, and I hope that our discussion tonight can revolve around some of those, because we really want to make sure that we're commenting to the state DOT your thoughts as well.
Now, this money, is this federal money given to the state for these programs?
It's federal dollars that are funneled through the DOT out to the community.
So this isn't North Dakota money basically being handed out?
No.
So. Well, the parameters that you explained to us, I was thinking about our downtown square immediately. But I don't know how that affects it if now a bunch of federal, regulations are involved on what we can do. So
they certainly didn't have all the answers. They were looking for comments and questions, but that was what Mr. Kessel said was one of the big concerns that came from the group that I met with, which was mostly city engineers and the DOT, was that if we have to go through all the hoops of a federal aid project to put in park benches, we'll probably just put in park benches. The value returned just won't be worth it if we have to do a ton of engineering on these projects. So I think they're trying to work on streamlining the process, but there will be some certain size of project that we'll need to submit. One, to be a beneficial project that'll be looked at through their selection committee as a good project, and two, that the value of the project will offset the cost of the engineering, because these are typically things that we wouldn't necessarily engineer.
Well, we may have to be selective in our projects. So, any other comments or questions for Mr. Kubis? I think that's it for Mr. Kubis this evening. Next up, we're going to planning. We have a final plat, Riverfront Estates subdivision. We have a consideration to approve a resolution, and this resolution would be, Mr. Hadley?
This resolution would be 15-2017. I can count this time.
We have resolution 15-2017, and this is the
It's the
final
replat, yes.
of the
Yes.
riverfront.
Yes, Mr. President. It's the replat of Riverfront Estates, existing 16-lot subdivision. They're replatting it to 11 lots. The applicant on preliminary stage had some conditions that they had to meet for a lighting plan, landscaping, mailboxes. They have met those requirements. The few things that are going to be outstanding, and that will be covered in the development agreement that you see further forthcoming, will be a financial security that Ms. Kripe will have to agree to for the improvements, and amended DA for construction schedule that Engineer Kubis and staff will have to review and approve, and that will be forthcoming to you. But with the final plat itself, they're basically taking the existing subdivision, making a little larger lots. There's 2 homes that are constructed out there right now, and moving forward, they are going to solve a pretty bad intersection issue, I guess, on the south side that if Mr. Kubis wants to visit on, he can. But I think it will be a good project. They were going to try to finalize the improvements there this calendar year. They also ran out of asphalt time, so they're not going to be doing that. So the development agreement will outline it, and I believe Mr. Kubis would like it completed by the end of 2018. So with that, the Planning Commission and city staff would recommend approval, and there wasn't any public comment given at the public hearing.
Okay, any questions or comments for Mr. Hadley? Hearing no questions or comments, I'd look for a motion on the 15-27, the resolution.
Move to approve Resolution 15-2017.
Second.
We have a motion to approve with a second of resolution 15-27. Any further discussion or questions? Hearing none, we'll vote. Mrs. Trustum?
Aye.
Mr. Altman?
Aye.
Mr. Steiner?
Aye.
Mr. Friedrich?
Aye.
Chair votes aye. Resolution is approved. Moving on, we're going to building codes. We have a 27 update report. Building official Schwint.
President Decker, Commissioners, what you have in front of you is the year to date ending in September. The chart actually does show 2015 included as a comparison, but I will only use 2016 and 17 as far as the breakdown. To date, we have 6 commercial projects compared to 3 last year. We have seen a very large increase in single-family structures. We're at 50 where we were at 16 last year. And with, I guess, the values obviously go up with the new permits buildings going up. I'd show the next slide, please. Next slide. Building alterations, commercial has increased. On the residential side, it has decreased. And it's reflective in the overall cost in that also. I could just go through if you want to stop. Alterations to the building permit, obviously the commercial has increased also. Miscellaneous permits, we have an increase across the board, plumbing, mechanical, concrete permits. The only one that is down is our sign and fireplace and moving permits. Next slide. Permit fees have also increased. To date, next slide, please. Code compliance letters, we have almost 1,800 sent out this summer. As you look at the chart there, a majority of them have been tall grass and weeds. Even though we had a dry summer, the weeds seem to like it. To date, we have sent out fees of around $45,000. I believe that's about 25 parcels that were affected. That concludes the report.
Thank you, Mr. Schwint. Any questions for Mr. Schwint on the 2017 update on buildings and codes? If not, we'll move on to commissioners. Anything on the commission you'd like to bring up for the public? Anything from commissioners? Nothing from commissioners. We'll move on to the public issues of city concern, not on the agenda. If you have a public issue of city concern not on our agenda, please come forward, state your name, and address the commission with your concern.
Good evening, President Decker, commissioners. My name is Kyle Jost, and I recently got a compliance letter in the mail that my yard was not in compliance with City Code 39.08.007. And what that code refers to is that you have to have, for every 500 square feet of required landscaping, you have to have at least one tree planted. And apparently my house doesn't comply. I do have one tree in the front and I have two in the back, but apparently that's not enough. And I feel like that code is an overreach of authority. I don't know. I feel like a tree should be voluntarily planted, or multiple trees should be voluntarily planted. I don't know that that's something the city should be really involved with. So I would like the commission to take a look at that and hopefully get that abolished. You have any questions for me?
I'm glad you brought that up. I agree with you 100%. I think this goes back to many years ago on beautification of North Dakota and its cities and so on, where they encouraged planting of trees and grasses and so on. And you know, I've always wondered, you know, we're telling people they got to plant these trees in their front yard, you know, so thick and so on. And then 15, 20 years down the road, they got to come in and put new sewers because the roots are down in there and so on. And I'm thinking like you, it's my yard. If I'm 65 years old and I want to put up a new place, no trees, so I don't have to rake leaves, cut down trees when they need it, or winter storm damage on trees, that should be my concern, and only my concern. So I would like us to look at this whole ordinance that this gentleman is referring to. Because
I think Mr. Steiner, Mr. Friedrich and I have already addressed this in planning and zoning. I know I've talked with building official Schwinn about this and Mr. Hadley. I think we're looking at, in planning and zoning, to address this
Okay.
very issue, so,
Perfect, thank you.
thank you.
If I may add on to that, I certainly agree. We've had these conversations with Mr. Hadley as well about reducing the requirement. I don't know, I believe your request was to eliminate the requirement. I'm not sure that we're going that far in terms of our redoing of that ordinance. So if that's an opinion that we can certainly share that. And as Commission President Decker mentioned, he and Commissioner Friedrich are both on that planning and zoning that'll make a recommendation to the City Commission. But I believe that those changes don't go quite as far as I think he's hoping.
I know in our discussions, we basically said possibly you need to plant 3 trees. Where you want to plant them, it's up to you.
Yeah.
And my conversation with Mr. Kessel, I was like, I don't get credit for the 14 in my backyard, so if I want to take out my front tree. I think we need to address this, and like I said, Mr. Friedrich and I brought this up in planning and zoning. So, anyone else from the public wants to come forward, has a concern not on our agenda, please come forward, state your name and your concern. Seeing no one else from the public has any concerns, I would look for a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
We are adjourned.